Admiral Sarah Chen traced her fingers along the holographic display's edge, studying the massive Kralaxian fleet that transformed Earth's normally blue skies into a tapestry of shadowed metal. The command center hummed with focused energy as her crew maintained their positions, each person moving with practiced precision, despite the overwhelming sight above. 10,000 ships, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice steady as he analyzed the tactical display. Each vessel appears to be carrier class or larger. They're maintaining high orbit, Admiral. Sarah nodded, allowing herself a small smile that confused her bridge crew. They couldn't know about Protocol Omega yet. Nobody did, except for the select few who had spent the last century preparing for this exact moment. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Supreme Commander Kralvor of the Kralaxian Empire. His scaled face filled the display, crystalline eyes gleaming with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. The universal translator processed his words with only a slight delay. People of Earth, Kralvor's voice resonated through the command center. The Kralaxian Empire brings you civilization and order. 300 worlds have joined our prosperity. You will be next. Surrender within 48 hours, or we will demonstrate the consequences of defiance. Sarah straightened her uniform and stepped forward. Her next words would echo through history, though not for the reasons the Kralaxians might expect. Supreme Commander, she replied, her tone carrying the weight of centuries of human preparation. We have only one response. War will leave a price you'll never forget. Kralvor's laugh filled the chamber. Brave words from a primitive species. We've heard similar declarations from hundreds of worlds. All of them now prosper under our guidance. Perhaps, Sarah answered, maintaining her enigmatic smile. But they weren't human. She signaled Communications Officer Jung, who pressed a single button on her console. Across the galaxy, quantum-entangled particles shifted states. A message rippled through subspace, activating dormant systems that humanity had spent generations placing throughout Kralaxian space. The bridge crew watched in confusion as their admiral opened a secure channel to a facility deep beneath the Mariana Trench. Dr. Okanjo, initiate the quantum web. Authorization, Chen Alpha Zero. Admiral. Rodriguez interrupted. The Kralaxian fleet is moving into attack formation. Let them, Sarah replied, her calm demeanor unshaken. They're fighting the last war. We're fighting the next one. She turned to her crew, seeing the mixture of fear and trust in their eyes. What they don't understand is that humanity never prepared for a war of ships and weapons. We prepared for something far more sophisticated. On her private display, green lights began appearing across a map of Kralaxian space. Each point represented a node in humanity's hidden network, coming online after decades of patient preparation. Banking systems, communication networks, cultural databases, all containing carefully crafted backdoors and subtle vulnerabilities waiting for this precise moment. Send a message to all Earth defense stations, Sarah commanded. Operation Masterpiece is now active. Let's show them why humanity's greatest weapons were never our guns. As the massive fleet above them prepared for what they thought would be a simple conquest, humanity's true strategy began to unfold. The price of war would indeed be unforgettable, but not in the way anyone expected. Sarah Chen had just initiated the most elaborate strategic plan in human history, and the Kralaxians wouldn't understand what hit them until it was far too late. The real battle was about to begin, one fought with algorithms, culture, and carefully orchestrated chaos rather than traditional weapons. And humanity had been preparing for this moment for over 100 years. Dr. James Okanjo stood in the heart of the Mariana complex, surrounded by walls of quantum processors that pulsed with soft blue light. The facility, buried 15 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, represented humanity's greatest secret and their most powerful weapon. Authorization accepted, the facility's AI announced. Quantum web protocols initiating. James watched as holographic displays materialized around him, each one representing a different sector of Kralaxian space. For a century, Every human deep space mission had carried a hidden payload. Every failed probe, every lost satellite, every seemingly abandoned mining operation, all part of an intricate web that was now coming alive. Network synchronization at 30%, reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka, his quantum communications specialist. Her fingers danced across haptic interfaces as data streams poured in. The dormant nodes are responding exactly as designed. James allowed himself a moment of pride. 3 generations of his family had worked on this project, starting with his grandmother who developed the first quantum entanglement probes. "Show me the coverage map," he commanded. The central hologram expanded, revealing a 3-dimensional map of Kralaxian territory. Green points of light bloomed across it like stars appearing at dusk. Each one represented a hidden quantum sensor, carefully positioned near critical Imperial infrastructure. "Military Command Node Alpha is online," Yuki announced. "We have access to their primary fleet communications. More displays activated, showing real-time data from the heart of the Kralaxian war machine. Their encryption is exactly what our deep learning systems predicted. They haven't changed their protocols in over 500 years. "Imperial overconfidence," James murmured, "just as we hoped." He opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. "Admiral Chen, the quantum web is active. You now have eyes and ears across their entire empire." Through his quantum-linked display, James could see Sarah Chen's satisfied smile. "Excellent. Begin Phase 2 of Operation Masterpiece." James turned to his team of quantum engineers and data analysts. "Launch the Symphony Protocol. Let's show them what a century of preparation looks like." Across the facility, specialized AI systems began processing the flood of data. They mapped supply lines, tracked fleet movements, and identified critical economic nodes. But more importantly, they found the subtle connections, the hidden dependencies that held the mighty Kralaxian Empire together. "Sir," called out Dr. Marcus Wong, head of predictive analytics, "the behavioral models are already confirming our theories. Their entire command structure relies on absolute control of information. They've never faced an enemy who could see everything at once." James nodded, watching as the facility's quantum processors assembled a real-time model of the entire Kralaxian civilization. Economic systems, social networks, military hierarchies, all laid bare before humanity's hidden network. "Begin distributing the data packets to our specialized teams. Economic warfare units first, then cultural infiltration groups. The Kralaxians above would be expecting weapons. Energy beams, missiles, desperate last stands. Instead, humanity had built something far more devastating. Perfect information, gathered over decades, ready to be used with surgical precision." "Dr. Okonjo," Yuki called out, her voice tense with excitement. "The deep space nodes are reporting in. We have access to their primary banking networks." James smiled, thinking of the Kralaxian fleet above Earth, still preparing for a conventional battle. They had no idea that humanity's greatest weapons weren't built to destroy, but to understand. And in that understanding lay the power to unmake an empire without firing a single shot. "Send word to Maya Patel's economics team," he ordered. "The board is set. Let the real game begin." Maya Patel stood before the towering market displays in Earth's Shadow Economics division, her eyes tracking 1,000 shifting data points. Each line, each number represented a thread in the vast tapestry of the Kralaxian economy. And she was about to pull them all, one by one. "Stage 1 complete," announced her chief analyst, David Chen. "Our AI systems have identified the optimal pressure points. Their entire economic structure depends on exactly what we predicted: absolute centralized control." Maya nodded, her fingers weaving through the holographic data. Decades of careful study had revealed the Kralaxians' fatal flaw. They'd built an empire so perfectly efficient that it had no redundancy, no room for chaos. "Begin Operation Market Garden," she commanded. "Let's show them how Earth does economics." Across her displays, carefully crafted algorithms activated. Subtle at first, a slight delay in shipping manifests here, a minor credit discrepancy there. The kind of small errors that any complex system naturally produced. Nothing worth noticing. Nothing worth worrying about. First ripples detected, reported Lisa Wong from the Market Analytics Station. Their automated systems are responding exactly as modeled. They're trying to compensate by redirecting resources. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Perfect. They're following their protocols, just as they have for centuries. Initiate Phase 2. Through the quantum network, Maya's team inserted carefully crafted data packets into the Kralaxian trading systems. Whispers of resource shortages, hints of supply chain disruptions, minor correlations that their predictive algorithms would flag as troubling. Market uncertainty rising, David announced. Their major trading houses are beginning to hedge their positions. Automated systems are triggering preliminary safeguards. On the main screen, Maya watched the cascade begin. The Kralaxian economy was a marvel of efficiency, every part perfectly calibrated to support the others. But that efficiency came with a price. One shock would ripple through the entire system. Send the package to Colony World Zenith, Maya ordered. Let's see how their most productive mining world reacts to a seemingly random computer glitch. Across the galaxy, a quantum-encoded message triggered a subtle change in Zenith's automated trading protocols. Nothing dramatic. Just a 2% increase in the processing time for resource transactions. Zenith's market is responding, Lisa reported, excitement creeping into her voice. Their local AI systems are flagging potential supply chain disruptions. Secondary markets are starting to react. Maya watched as the ripples spread. The Kralaxian Empire had spent millennia building the perfect economic machine, but they'd forgotten one crucial detail. Perfect machines were the most vulnerable to subtle sabotage. "Sir," David called out, "we're detecting increased communication between their central banking authorities. They're trying to coordinate a response." "Too late," Maya murmured. "They're still thinking in terms of traditional economic warfare. They're looking for attackers, for someone trying to crash their markets." She gestured at the spreading patterns of economic chaos. "But we're not trying to crash anything. We're introducing just enough uncertainty to let their own efficiency work against them." On her private screen, Maya watched as the first major trade hub began to show signs of stress. Supply ships, responding to conflicting algorithmic demands, began to alter their routes. Resource allocations, the lifeblood of the empire, started to show microscopic delays. "Send word to Admiral Chen," Maya ordered. "Economic destabilization is proceeding as planned. The Empire's perfect machine is about to experience something it's never encountered before: doubt." Above Earth, the Kralaxian fleet remained in attack formation, unaware that the real battle was already being lost in the abstract realm of numbers and algorithms. Their empire was beginning to tremble, not from the impact of weapons, but from the gentle touch of carefully crafted chaos. Hiro Tanaka sat cross-legged on her apartment floor in Tokyo, surrounded by holographic screens displaying Kralaxian social media feeds, entertainment channels, and cultural broadcasts. Steam rose from her green tea as her fingers danced through the air, conducting an orchestra of cultural algorithms. "Memetic Package Alpha is ready for deployment," announced Dr. Sarah Martinez, her cultural psychology specialist, through the quantum link. The AI has optimized it for maximum resonance with Kralaxian youth demographics. Hiro studied the complex web of cultural influences her team had mapped over decades. "Their greatest weakness isn't their technology or their economy," she murmured. "It's their certainty. They're so convinced of their cultural superiority that they've forgotten how to question." She selected a seemingly innocent entertainment package, a collection of Kralaxian-style stories crafted by her team's cultural AI. Each tale contained carefully embedded concepts, questions about authority, ideas about personal freedom, subtle challenges to imperial doctrine. "Launch the first wave," Hiro commanded. "Let's give them something new to think about." Across Kralaxian space, quantum-linked nodes began introducing the stories into their entertainment networks. The tales appeared organic, matching their cultural patterns perfectly while carrying hidden payloads of human ideas. First responses are coming in, reported Kai Chen, her social media analyst. The stories are being shared among younger Kralaxians. Their content filtering systems aren't detecting anything unusual. Hero smiled, watching as the cultural viruses began to spread. Initialize Project Harmony. Time to add some music to the mix. New data streams flowed through the quantum network. Songs that seemed to follow Kralaxian musical traditions, but contained subtle variations. Rhythms that encouraged independent thinking. Harmonies that evoked emotional responses their culture had long suppressed. Underground art channels are picking up the transmissions, Sarah reported. We're seeing the first signs of mimetic adaptation. They're beginning to create their own versions. On her main display, Hero watched the cultural ripples spread. Young Kralaxians were already remixing the songs, adding their own layers of meaning. The Imperial censors, trained to look for obvious rebellion, saw nothing worth suppressing. "Sir," Kai called out, excitement in his voice. The first philosophical discussion groups are forming in their virtual spaces. They're asking exactly the questions we predicted. Hero nodded, satisfied. Their empire maintained control through cultural uniformity. They never understood that the most powerful ideas are the ones that feel like your own. She opened another stream of data, this one containing artwork generated by her team's cultural AI. Each piece was a masterwork of subtle subversion, beautiful by Kralaxian standards, but containing elements that would slowly awaken dormant questions. "Deploy the visual arts package," she ordered. "Let's give their eyes something new to see." The quantum network hummed as the carefully crafted images began appearing in Kralaxian cultural spaces. Art galleries, public displays, social media feeds, all slowly filling with works that looked perfectly normal to Imperial censors, but carried seeds of transformation. "First wave of response art is appearing," Sarah announced. Their young artists are already experimenting with the new styles. Cultural authorities are praising the renaissance of traditional forms. Hero allowed herself a moment of pride. The Kralaxians had expected humanity to fight with weapons, but they'd never imagined that Earth's greatest arsenal was its understanding of how cultures evolved and changed. "Send word to Admiral Chen," she instructed. "Cultural infiltration is proceeding as planned. The Empire's perfect unity is about to discover the beautiful chaos of individual expression." Above Earth, the Kralaxian fleet maintained its threatening posture, unaware that their civilization was already beginning to transform, not through force or fear, but through stories, songs, and art that would remake their world from within. Governor Zextal stood at the panoramic window of his palace on Colony World Prima, watching as the evening sun cast purple shadows across the capital city's crystalline spires. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the way his citizens moved through the streets below, in the whispered conversations that stopped when officials passed by. "Another disruption report, Governor," announced his aide, Venra, her scales shifting to a troubled blue hue. The Cultural Preservation Committee found 3 more underground art galleries. The pieces they're creating, they're different, independent, questioning. Zextal's inner eyelids flickered with concern. "And the economic situation?" "Deteriorating, sir. The Imperial Bank's automated systems are showing unprecedented delays. Trade ships are reporting conflicting schedules. Local businesses are beginning to hoard resources." A message crystal on his desk pulsed with urgent light. Zextal pressed it, and a hologram of Colony World Zenith's governor materialized, looking considerably more distressed. "Zextal, we're declaring independence," the hologram announced without preamble. "Our world's economy can no longer sustain imperial taxation. Our people are demanding autonomy. We're not alone. 15 other colonial worlds have already severed ties with the Empire." The news hit Zextal like a physical blow. "This is madness. The Empire has stood for 10,000 years. We bring order, prosperity. Do we?" The other governor interrupted. "Have you seen the new economic models? The cultural analyses. The empire doesn't create prosperity. It concentrates it. It doesn't bring order. It enforces stagnation. Zextal's scales rippled with agitation. These weren't just rebellious thoughts. They were complete restructurings of fundamental imperial ideology. Where are these ideas coming from? Everywhere. Nowhere. They're in our art, our music, our market algorithms, the humans. The transmission cut off abruptly. "Sir," Venera called out, her voice tight with urgency. "Social media channels are exploding. Someone leaked the Imperial Treasury's real financial data. The public is realizing that our economic stability was what? An illusion, sir, maintained by information control and market manipulation. Without those," she gestured helplessly at her datapad. Zextal sank into his chair, watching as more urgent messages began flooding his communication system, colony after colony declaring independence. Trade agreements dissolving, cultural bonds snapping like overwound strings. "The humans," he whispered, finally understanding. "When they said war would leave a price we'd never forget, this is what they meant. They didn't target our fleet, our defenses, our military capabilities. They targeted everything else," Venera finished. "Our economy, our culture, our unity. Sir, what are your orders?" Zextal looked out at his city again. The streets were filling with citizens now, but not in panic. They moved with purpose, with a new kind of energy he'd never seen before. Their scales showed patterns of individual expression rather than the traditional uniformity. "No orders," he said finally. "No more orders from above. Prima will join the independence movement." He turned to his aide. "Prepare a planetary broadcast. Our people deserve to choose their own path." As the sun set on his world, Zextal composed the hardest message of his life. Not a declaration of war or surrender, but something far more profound. An acknowledgement that change had come, not through force of arms, but through the subtle power of ideas and information. The empire was dissolving, transforming into something new. And somehow, without firing a single shot, humanity had orchestrated it all. They had discovered the ultimate truth about power. Sometimes the greatest changes come not from what you break, but from what you let people build for themselves. Supreme Commander Kralvor paced the command deck of his flagship, his crystalline eyes reflecting the endless stream of emergency transmissions flooding the tactical displays. Each message brought worse news than the last. His mighty invasion fleet, 10,000 ships strong, now represented the last cohesive military force of a crumbling empire. Supreme Commander, his tactical officer, Rixtel, approached with another update. "We've lost contact with the Imperial capital. The quantum communication network is experiencing unprecedented disruptions." Kralvor's scales shifted to a deep purple of frustration. "Impossible. Our systems are perfect, tested through millennia." "Sir," Rixtel interrupted, breaking protocol in his urgency. "Our system's perfection is the problem. The humans, they understood our networks better than we did. They're not destroying our communication channels. They're using them against us." The Supreme Commander activated his private tactical display, watching as more colonial worlds disappeared from Imperial control. Not through conquest or rebellion, but through seemingly natural cascades of economic, cultural, and social changes. "Show me Earth again," he commanded. The holographic display shifted, showing the blue-green world below. His fleet still held perfect attack formation, weapons primed, shields ready, but they hadn't fired a single shot. Couldn't fire a single shot. The humans had somehow made military action irrelevant. "Another message from Admiral Chen, sir," Rixtel reported. "Just 3 words. Consider the price." Kralvor's inner eyelids closed as he remembered the human's warning. "War will leave a price you'll never forget." He had laughed then, thinking of the price in terms of ships lost, resources spent, tactical advantages gained or surrendered. "Sir," his cultural analyst, Marax, approached with a data crystal. "You need to see this. It's spreading through every entertainment channel, every social network, every cultural feed in our remaining territories. The crystal projected a simple image: a Kralaxian child, scales painted in forbidden patterns of individual expression, creating art that didn't follow imperial standards. Below it, a caption in their ancient language: "Who decides what beauty is?" A mimetic weapon, Kralvor realized, but not one that destroys, one that creates. His command staff gathered around him, their scales showing patterns of uncertainty he'd never seen in military officers before. They were changing too, he realized. All of them. Supreme Commander, his economic advisor, Zarkin, spoke up. The imperial treasury has collapsed, but the colonial worlds that declared independence, they're establishing new trade networks, sustainable ones. They're prospering. Kralvor walked to the viewport, staring at Earth. Such a small world to have orchestrated something so vast. They had never targeted his fleet's capabilities. Instead, they had simply made the fleet irrelevant. "Sir," Rixtel said softly, "we're receiving requests from ship captains across the fleet. They're asking what we're fighting for, if the Empire we're defending no longer exists." The Supreme Commander felt the weight of 10,000 years of imperial history on his shoulders. But also, for the first time, the possibility of something new. "Send word to Admiral Chen," he finally commanded. Tell her we understand the price now, and we choose not to pay it." He turned to his command staff, seeing the same realization in their expressions. The Empire hadn't been defeated. It had been transformed. And perhaps, he thought, that was what humanity had intended all along. "Order the fleet to stand down," he announced. "The Empire as we knew it is over, but perhaps what comes next might be worth seeing." As his orders spread through the fleet, Kralvor watched Earth rotating below, finally understanding that the humans' greatest weapon hadn't been their ability to destroy. It had been their ability to imagine a different way of existing, and their patience in letting others discover it for themselves. The great hall of the former imperial palace buzzed with an energy that would have been unthinkable just months ago. Where once only the drone of administrative proclamations echoed, now the sound of passionate debate filled the crystal-vaulted chamber. Representatives from 100 former colony worlds gathered, their scales shimmering with previously forbidden patterns of individual expression. Lyravan, once a minor cultural compliance officer, and now the elected speaker for her world, stood at the center of the gathering. Her scales rippled with iridescent colors that would have earned her punishment in the old regime. "The humans never sought to conquer us," she addressed the assembly. "They showed us something far more precious, the power of choice." The quantum screens surrounding the hall displayed real-time data from across former imperial space. Economic indicators showed surprising stability as new organic trade networks formed between independent worlds. Cultural exchanges flourished as artists and thinkers freely shared ideas across planetary boundaries. "Report from Earth's diplomatic team," announced Tekari, the newly appointed communication coordinator. "They're offering to share their quantum network technology, not as a weapon, but as a tool for connecting our worlds." The assembly buzzed with excitement. The very network that had helped unravel their empire was now being offered as a foundation for something new. "Look at these economic projections," called out Zarkin, the former imperial economic advisor who now helped coordinate interworld trade. Without imperial taxation and resource control, local economies are developing natural equilibriums. We're seeing growth patterns that the old system would have suppressed. Lyravan watched as more data streamed in through the quantum links. Art galleries on distant worlds showcased works that blended traditional Kralaxian forms with startling new innovations. Schools taught not just imperial doctrine, but encouraged questions and independent thought. "Message from the Earth Cultural Exchange Initiative," Tekri announced. "They're inviting young Kralaxians to study at their universities. Not to change us, they say, but to help us discover who we might become." The assembly's mood shifted from excitement to thoughtful consideration. The humans had proven themselves master strategists, yet their victory had brought not subjugation but opportunity. Their warning, mused an elder representative, his scales showing the traditional patterns of deep contemplation about the price of war. Perhaps they knew that the greatest price would be seeing what we had denied ourselves for so long. Laravan activated the central holographic display, showing a real-time map of their transformed civilization. Where the Empire had enforced rigid uniformity, now each world showed distinct cultural and economic patterns while maintaining voluntary connections with their neighbors. The humans understood something we had forgotten, she said softly. True strength doesn't come from control. It comes from adaptation, from the beautiful chaos of million minds thinking freely. Outside the palace, the capital city had transformed. The stark geometric patterns of imperial architecture now served as backdrops for vibrant public art. Markets bustled with traders from across the former empire, each bringing their world's unique goods and ideas. We've received an invitation, Tekri announced. Earth is hosting a Galactic cooperative summit. They want us to attend not as former adversaries, but as partners in building something new. Laravan looked out at the assembled representatives, seeing in their patterns and postures something that had been missing from Kralaxian society for millennia. Hope. Tell them we accept, she declared. The Empire's long night is over. It's time to see what we can build in the light of a new day. The assembly hall erupted in a display of colors as hundreds of Kralaxians expressed their approval in their own unique ways. The humans had indeed taught them an unforgettable lesson about war. Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your opponent, but from helping them evolve into something greater than they ever imagined possible. The Singapore Orbital Conference Center rotated slowly against the star-studded backdrop of Earth's night side, its crystalline chambers filled with representatives from across known space. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the central podium, looking out at the most diverse gathering the galaxy had ever seen. Former Kralaxian colony worlds, now independent states, sat alongside Earth's allies. Their representatives displayed a riot of individualistic scale patterns that would have been unthinkable months ago. Among them, Supreme Commander, now Diplomatic Coordinator, Kralvor sat with his scales, showing the newly adopted pattern of peaceful discourse. 5 years ago, Sarah began, humanity faced what seemed to be an impossible choice: submit to conquest or face destruction. Instead, we chose a third path. The quantum displays around the chamber activated, showing the vast network that had transformed the galaxy. Economic data flowed alongside cultural exchanges, each stream representing connections freely chosen rather than imposed. The Galactic Cooperative, she continued, isn't built on military might or economic domination. It's founded on something far stronger: the power of free worlds choosing to work together. Dr. James Okonjo, now head of the Quantum Communications Initiative, brought up a new display showing the expanded network. The same quantum web that helped reshape the old empire now connects all our worlds, but this time it carries trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific collaboration. Maya Patel, Director of Cooperative Economics, stepped forward with her own presentation. Our economic model shows something remarkable. When worlds trade freely, when cultures exchange ideas openly, prosperity isn't a zero-sum game. Every world in the cooperative has seen growth that the old imperial system would have made impossible. From her position among the Earth delegation, Hiro Tanaka watched as her cultural integration algorithms displayed the flourishing of art and ideas across formerly restricted space. New forms of music, literature, and visual arts bloomed like digital flowers across the quantum network. Laravan, now the elected speaker for the former imperial worlds, rose to address the gathering. We came to Earth expecting to find primitives needing guidance. Instead, we found teachers who showed us what we had forgotten: that true civilization isn't about control, but about growth. The chamber hummed with approval as representatives from dozens of worlds shared their experiences. Trade routes that once carried imperial taxes now transported innovations and ideas. Former military outposts had become cultural exchange centers. The price of war, Kralvor mused, addressing his former adversary, Admiral Chen, wasn't measured in ships lost or resources depleted. It was in seeing how much we had limited ourselves. Sarah nodded, remembering that first confrontation. The greatest weapons aren't those that destroy, she replied, but those that reveal possibilities. The gathering moved into its final phase, the signing of the cooperative charter. One by one, representatives from Earth, former imperial worlds, and independent systems added their signatures to a document that emphasized cooperation over control, diversity over uniformity, and growth over stagnation. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah stood at the observation dome, watching Earth rotate below. Dr. Okonjo joined her, along with Maya, Hiro, and their Kralaxian counterparts. They expected us to fight like everyone else, Sarah said softly. Instead, we showed them something new. Not just them, Kralvor responded, his scales showing the complex patterns of deep appreciation. You showed the galaxy that true power lies not in the ability to conquer, but in the wisdom to transform. The Singapore orbital continued its graceful rotation, a symbol of the new order, not an empire of force, but a cooperative of choice. Humanity's warning about the price of war had indeed proved unforgettable, but not for the reasons anyone had expected.